Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's investment show, Modern Investing on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Starr, and today we have guests, Jim Eid from Eid Foundation. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you for having me, Sasha. You're coming back from vacation because you didn't remember the show's name.
Yeah, you're right, because for about 3 weeks we haven't done any show.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
So let me ask you, in 3 weeks' time, I was on vacation and there were no shows, and I came back and I looked at the market. What, in your opinion, are substantial changes?
Well, I think that the market has reacted well to there's a phrase now or an acronym now, TACO, which Trump always chickens out. And so he tried to get tough with China, and China punched him in the nose, and he backed down. And now they're in trade talks, and so the market is really hoping, because the global economy is under threat, and businesses don't know how to plan, as they don't know what Trump's next impulse will be and what he will do. But they seem to be thinking, okay, the worst of it is over. He's more bluff, more bark than bite, and so I think that there is some more stability in the market, but who knows what's right around the corner. So
yeah,
nobody is very confident right now, I would say. But the consumer confidence is a little higher than it was. It was starting to dip pretty low, and now I think that they're figuring that things are going to be okay.
Okay. Now Dr. Milan Sambarak is joining our show. Welcome to the show, Jim. Milan, sorry.
You're muted, Milan.
We'd like to hear you as well, if possible.
You're muted.
You're muted, yeah. Okay. Why he's muted? So he just joined us. Well, because I wanted to ask him the same question.
Yeah. We can hear you now, I'm sure.
For 3 weeks, we haven't had any shows. No, you're still... you're not coming through.
I would suggest logging off and logging back on.
Yeah.
Tends to do the trick.
Yeah.
It's an old system programmer trick.
Exactly. That's what...
Bring it down and back up.
Yeah. Okay.
So what do you think of your return? I'm sure you kept an eye on the markets. But
yes, I kept an eye. I didn't really do much trading, though I just increased my position in NVIDIA, because when you don't know what else to do, so you buy NVIDIA. So whenever you have available cash, so okay, what do you do? Okay, you can buy many other. Actually, I did, but it was before I left for a trip. I've tried one very interesting strategy, which so far works, actually. I've never done that before. You're familiar with the United Health company?
Yes.
Remember, they dropped around by 50% or so. And I decided that, okay, they had problems or so on, but still it doesn't justify such a steep drop in price. So I decided to try this. I've purchased 5 300 calls June 27th, and I sold 300, and I sold 310, the same expiration date, June 27th, calls, same number, 5. So my opinion, stock by that time should have been moved to 310 at least, if not higher. So if that my strategy would work, I would make $1,000 on each call.
Yeah, it's at 309 now. I just noticed.
Yeah, so it's been justified so far. So
right.
We'll have some time left, and I think...
And it was a steep drop, Sasha, you're right.
It was a fantastic drop. Maybe even justified or no, but I decided that that's sound strategy, not too risky though. My exposure was $350 per call. So I was losing maximum $1,750. And if I'm right, I would win not 5,000, but close to it, 4,200 something net profit.
Well, chump change for an investor such as yourself, Sasha.
Yeah, so this is something what I've tried. What else? I keep large position in at NVDY, and the dividends what they paid is very very good last time. And next week they will pay again. I'm not sure how much, but
You're
based.
muted. Alon. I'm sorry, Sasha.
Yeah,
We're trying to see if we can hear him.
yeah.
Technical difficulties. Try again. No.
See, this is what happens when you're late on the show, and
Yeah, we tried to work out the technical difficulties
Okay.
before. So.
okay, that's fine. So I have ordered now. I sold earlier today. Small position. I sold 3 calls on SOXL.
So Excel.
I believe it's a little bit overextended by now. Long term, I still think there's a room to run, but it's a little bit overextended. So I sold the June 20 calls. Okay, I'm making a little bit of profit.
So is this an ETF in semiconductors?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's kind of I would be looking at that kind of positively still.
No, it's positive in the long run, but I think it on the short term it's a little bit overextended, and it's also protected by my position in Nvidia. So if semiconductors will go higher, and so my Nvidia position will definitely make up. But I didn't want to sell Nvidia calls.
Yeah, Nvidia has climbed right back up almost to where it was, in January, almost, not quite, but it took a big hit down through April, and then it's come back almost all the way back.
Well, I'm reading the latest news of Nvidia. There are awesome developments, and I think 150 could be reached anytime now. And from there, once it will go through 150 resistance, I don't see any other resistance at all. I think it will go through 160 and 170, 175 perhaps. Maybe real resistance would be something like 200 probably.
Yeah. Well, I definitely have, I bought it, I sold it, and I bought it again.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that it's just one of those stocks that seems to be every time someone gets negative about it, it just people have this they kind of get on board and they think that whether it's going up or going down, that's trend is going to continue. So it got punished quite substantially, but I'm looking at making a good amount of money off of it again, and I already made some when I sold. And so when I bought back, it was lower and, substantially lower. And now it's way above where I bought it. And the other stock that I've been following and along that lines is Marvell, MRVL. And that took the beating that NVIDIA did. And it hasn't climbed back quite as much, but I'm still very positive on it. I think the earnings are just phenomenal, and every time they report earnings, it's up again. So I'm thinking that these especially these semiconductor companies that specialize in AI and customizing AI, and producing chips that are custom made for whatever your company needs. These stocks still got a long ways to go.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And still, fundamentally, I really don't see what can come even close to NVIDIA. It doesn't mean that NVIDIA is the best performing in this group. For example, even AMD, which is so-called poor man's NVIDIA, it may do better than NVIDIA in a certain period of time.
It's coming back too.
It's coming back too, and it may, in percentages, it could do even better than NVIDIA in some periods, maybe in next 2 weeks, maybe in next 2 months. But
I still have too much of it as far as I'm concerned.
No, there is no real competition. It's just a matter of supply and demand. It's a matter of that people sometimes believe, okay, I'm late for NVIDIA. Okay, I'll try to make some money in AMD or maybe some other stock or so on. And why not? Why not?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Milan. Success.
Okay.
Technology.
Yes, it's our friend, right?
When it works.
So
now that I'm here, may I make a few comments since you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sure. Please go ahead.
The market is greatly overvalued, and one of these days, so a trend is much more likely to continue than to reverse itself. However, trend reversal is one of the few absolute certainties in the market. So someday it'll happen. So the market is overvalued. Nevertheless, when you take a look at a stock like Berkshire, BRKB, which is undervalued by a very large margin, I recently bought some. And if it continues to decline, I will buy even more. The idea is to buy bargains and take profits. So that it's a good way to go. And actually, most investors do the exact opposite. If you have an asset allocation of 50-50, say 50% in the market, mine happens to be 50% in Berkshire and SPY and 50% in cash. That way, when the market drops, your securities drop, you have more cash than securities. To get back to your 50-50, you take the cash and buy bargains. When the market rises and you have more in your securities than in cash, you sell some of that holdings in the market to get it back to the allocation. And you're constantly buying bargains and taking profits. There can't be any other way. Most investors are doing the exact opposite. Actually, most investors lose in the market. And when you take fees into account, so do most professionals.
And Milan, how often do you check your asset allocation? I mean, if it goes to 51, 49, you don't care.
Yeah, I check the market every day. It doesn't take long. And I'm retired now from dentistry, but when I was in practice, I had in my appointment book a 15-minute slot set aside where I was going to take a look at and do my market work. It never took 15 minutes. By the time you get experience, and it doesn't take a lot of experience to sell calls, sell covered calls and cash covered puts, takes no time at all. And that the business of selling covered calls on SPY and cash covered puts on SPY has over nearly 200 years produced an 18% annual return. Now, if you're 50% in the market and 50% in cash, then you're getting 9% annual return on your investments, guaranteed. Who needs more?
Is that a month or in a week? What are you talking about? 9%?
That 9% annually, annual return.
Annual return 9%. Yeah. Wow. Wow, what a fortune. Tell me, at what point do you switch from S&P 500 to Berkshire B?
Berkshire, when you write covered calls and cash secured puts, it's very good to do it first thing in the morning, expiry date the same.
No. My question is different.
No, but let me finish. Okay. Berkshire doesn't allow that. Sometimes you want to sell a covered call on Berkshire and the expiry date is 4 days away, during which time news could move the market in a way that is opposite of what you want. Next day, it'll be 3 days away. And the following day, it'll be 2 days away. The following day it'll be 1 day away, and finally it'll get to a point, and that doesn't happen. Happens a couple of times a month, where you can sell it first thing in the morning, and it'll expire at the end of the same day. And Berkshire is like that, so that's why I got into it. Why?
My question was, I'll repeat it again. At what point and why you switch from S&P 500 to Berkshire B?
Why? I'll answer why. First of all, I have both of them, and SPY allows options selling on a daily basis. Berkshire does not. And the ideal time to sell an option is first thing in the morning, expiry same day.
Exactly.
Berkshire
So then, what's the reason for you to add Berkshire B to S&P 500 that you already had and
Oh,
successful?
yeah, because it's undervalued. It's a real bargain today. It has dropped, I don't know, 6-7% in the last month.
Compared
What
to
market?
S&P 500, yeah. So, in your opinion, S&P 500 is overvalued and Berkshire B undervalued. Is it correct?
Not in my opinion. The opinion of experts. The opinion of Morningstar. You cannot count on analysts because they're all in somebody's pocket, except for Morningstar. Morningstar is the only independent analyst group that is perfectly objective. And if you have your account with TD Bank, it's a part of what they offered. What TD Bank offered you is access to Morningstar. Otherwise, you have to pay for Morningstar. I'm not sure how much, because having my accounts with TD Bank, I have access to Morningstar, the only objective analyst group that there is. And they're saying that the market is overvalued. They're saying that Berkshire is undervalued. I'm not equipped to judge that, but they certainly are.
Mark,
So
you're
when
the
you
producer. You don't have to raise your hand.
No, I just a quick question and everything along those lines. Thanks, Jim, and everything along those lines. But one is, I just found out my dad just had his second cataract surgery, and his lady love gave a great quote, and the quote will tie into my question because she said he required extra drops for dilation again because his pupils resisted. Everything is resistant these days. So my question is, how much is the resistance of the world taking place on the economy? So how much is that resistance of the world, because that's what you were joking about, and everything impacting our economy, since this is an investment show? So how much is it impacting investments, all this resistance going around from Chicago to New York to LA to North Carolina to wherever you want to look at the various resistance?
The protests in LA.
I feel I can answer that. So, James, what do you have to say?
Oh, I was just going to say the protests in LA. Trump called out the National Guard over the objections of the California's governor, which is not unprecedented, but is a very, very rare. Back in the civil rights day, LBJ called them out, and JFK did as well. But they weren't over the objections of the governor, but they were not asked to do so. So it's just another overreach by Trump, and there's a lot of protests going on about his immigration actions, the actions of the federal government in states and in cities that is unwelcome, causing a great deal of resistance. The effect on the market, I think, is pretty minimal. I'd be open to anyone disagreeing with that, because it's hard to judge. But I don't think that it's affecting business. I think it's affecting politics.
Dolly Parton's manager is a friend of mine, and he lives in Los Angeles. And I just wrote to him this morning to ask him about what's happening. How is it affecting people in Los Angeles? What is the general effect? And at next week's show, I'll have his answer.
Okay, good. I was impressed in different countries that I visited. All of them are members of NATO. All of them are members of European Union. The bottom line is that all of them hate Trump. All of them are not interested in the United States. And from that point on, attitudes are different. For example, in Poland, everyone is preparing for war against Russians. They are doing exercises. They are bringing reserves, people of 40 years and older, and of course young. They are bringing them for 2 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks training, and they shore up their defenses. They're spending now well over 5% of their annual GDP on the defense. In Latvia, less so, but it's a tiny country, and of course, on their own, they cannot defend against Russians. But Germany is taking a very active role in shore up all the defenses in the Baltic states. In Prague, Czech Republic, they are kind of funny people. I remember that the Czech Republic was for a long time under Austro-Hungarian Empire. So there are a lot of, even old places there. I visited Karlovy Vary, it used to be Karlsbad, Mariánské Lázně, it used to be Marienbad. So they have all German names. And German is very popular language there. Even their food, there are a lot of German type of foods, but Czech food is quite unimpressive, really, compared to what I ate in Poland and Latvia. Czech Republic, their food is not. But what I did, we ate in Prague. We ate in a French restaurant, fantastic, in the center of Prague.
Metropolitan city, yes.
El Gaucho, Argentinian steakhouse. So there are ways to battle
Yeah, of course. Yes.
inferior Czech food. And the funny thing is, my shortest stay was in Barcelona. And because it was after the first 3 countries that I visited, and each day we had 10,000 plus steps each. And
That's a lot of steps. It's good for you, though.
So in Barcelona, in a way, I've been in Barcelona before. So beauty of my stay this time was that I had no plans whatsoever. Whenever you get up, you get up. You start with cappuccino and breakfast. Then you go in our hotel. There was a swimming pool on the rooftop. So we would go to a swimming pool there, stay there for a few hours, and just lazy there. And then we would go. Actually, the stay was quite busy anyway because there were semifinals of the French Open, then the women's final, and then a fantastic final. So we were busy with tennis in the second half of the day.
Yeah.
Then we would have a nice dinner, and we stayed just off Rambla, right in the center of Barcelona. And then we flew back. So beautiful hotels everywhere, business class flights, meeting first class drivers, and no, it was a trip to remember for sure.
Sasha, my wife and I are planning to go to Portugal later this year in September for a wedding.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned a few places that are very popular, and I heard the expression over tourism, where they resent tourists because they are making such a negative, they're overloading the infrastructure. Did you notice that anywhere? Resentment of tourism because of over tourism?
Only in Barcelona, but
No.
because of my particular stay, when I didn't care to go to, say, Gaudi stuff and all that usual thing, touristy. Rambla was quite busy, but Rambla is always busy. It's a central place in Barcelona. But, Barcelona is not the same what it used to be last time I stayed there before COVID. It's dirty, a lot of Muslims. I don't have anything against Muslims, but I'm against too many of them in one place, may I say so. And some restaurants right on Ramblas, like Mustafa House and some other stuff. So, but again, I didn't care because I had no plans.
Well, Sasha, your travels remind me to ask this because I think Poland's trying to prepare for its defense against Russia, the wise thing. What about Latvia? Wouldn't
Latvia
Putin?
is relying on Germany to defend it because Latvia, all three Baltic republics, the total population of them is slightly over 5 million people.
But
They're
they all used to be members of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, and I would think Putin has his eye on them.
Putin wants them back, yeah.
Putin has an eye on small villages in Ukraine that takes a month to capture it by losing 1,500 people a day. That's what Putin is busy with. So there's no place for Baltic. But again, the attitude of Europeans is very different from Americans. Europeans understand that if Ukraine will fall, capitulate, or being captured by Russia, the next is Europe, starting from Moldova, Baltic republics, Poland, and so on.
Right.
Americans, again, it's not even Americans, it's a Trump, whose strategy is to be friends with the Putin, the bandit, and have business with him. And for him, priority number one is capitulation of Ukraine. And what's happening these days in Ukraine when there's a bombardment of civilians and killing people, and he is not saying a thing. And he goes against Senate and House and his own people and European people. He goes against all world because that's in his sick brain idea of having business with Putin. I'm surprised he's made already so much money lately, thanks to his so-called friends, Musk and the technical brothers in Silicon Valley. So
Yeah, that brotherhood didn't last. We all predicted it wouldn't, but Musk and Trump are,
but Musk is getting now on his knees, of course, because
there's a parallel there between what's happening in Russia and Ukraine and in Vietnam. I mean, during Vietnam, there were almost no Americans who wanted to be there. And there were almost no Vietnamese who didn't want them out of there. The same is happening now there. There are almost no Russians who want to be in the Ukraine. And there are almost no Ukrainians who don't want them out of there. So the Russians are not going to do well if we support them with equipment.
One of the things that the government said about the Vietnam War was they were afraid of a domino effect, is what they called it. And with Vietnam fell, then maybe Australia next. But we're really facing that if Ukraine falls, that there would be dire consequences for other countries. Putin would not stop there. So the support for Ukraine, I think, is extremely important, and the United States has been supportive. Trump is a wild card. Who knows what he's going to say or do next? But I'm curious about the anti-American sentiment in the EU. How is the EU doing in terms of the Trump tariffs, the threats of tariffs, and all of that? Are they binding together more, which is what I think is natural? Did you get any sense of that stuff?
It's not just the European Union, it's also China, it's also Middle East countries.
BRICS.
Almost all over the world, the sentiment is the world needs trade. It's impossible to conduct trade under Trump. So therefore, there will be a new coalitions and new blocks that will be much more powerful than BRICS, because right now what China is heading a new economic powerhouse. There will be 20 countries, the Asian developed economies, and the European Union most likely will join them, and Canada, by the way, and many other countries, simply to avoid dealing with the United States.
I agree.
The United States is a big market, there's no doubt about that, but the rest of the world is probably bigger.
Yeah, and it's a global economy, and this sense of isolationism, nationalism, that's for the past, and Trump is trying to live in the past, get the country to live in the past. It doesn't work anymore. And so this coalition of others is entirely predictable. I mean, we said this before Trump took over. If he does the things that he talks about doing, and he's not really done it so much as talked about doing it, threatened.
Taco.
Taco.
But you know what? Today there was a release in the morning of economic data, and inflation is not just as bad as people were afraid. So that's market went up. Now,
Yes.
event where the market will indeed go down is that the next reading there should be already Trump's policies starting to take effect. And I think the economic data may worsen considerably next reading, say 4 weeks from now, a month from now. And this is why it's a situation, it probably will affect NVIDIA less than other high-tech companies, but it will affect for sure. So therefore, you know what I'm doing is is that let's see, I'm selling covered calls on NVIDIA from time to time. Most of the time I don't. So I preserve the surrounds that NVIDIA has. And even if I sell covered calls, normally at the end of the day or during the day, I'm buying them back at the profit and waiting next day. I used to be afraid to be naked long NVIDIA, but not anymore because I've read the latest development, what's happening right now there.
Yeah.
It makes me very, very confident. And,
Yes.
and I think if it was a few months ago $150 a share, and now with the earnings and all this development, I think 150 resistance should be overcome almost any day. Any major announcement, and you will see 155 and so on, and there is no longer any resistance left.
And you know, it's so funny. We talk about the NVIDIA earnings were always going to be great.
Yeah.
And the problem that we had as investors was sometimes they weren't as great as they wanted them to be. And
but
so,
it's no longer the case.
but now, yes.
As great as you can ever imagine. And what's interesting is that there are a lot of noises that NVIDIA is overpriced, that the price earning ratio is incredible and all this stuff. You have you heard lately this talk anymore? I don't hear it anymore.
Yeah.
It's overpriced, that the earnings don't justify such a price.
It's an old-fashioned kind of analysis to think about price earnings with a company like that. It's not to be analyzed in that way. It's all about the earnings and the potential earnings and future earnings. And everything is pointing for the incredible earnings that they've already generated to increase.
But
it will be constant. But
it will be increased very substantially because of look at the new associations that NVIDIA builds, especially in Europe, with UK, with of course European Union countries. They are doing quite well in Asia. So almost in every aspect, even in medical development of medical equipment and so on, they are doing so well everywhere across the board. Like when you were saying that NVIDIA is overpriced, if you take into account what's coming, no competition.
Yeah,
it's just incredible. I'm really impressed, and I'm glad that I'm staying with the stock.
Do you have a target price in mind where you would start to back off?
200.
200.
Yeah. Well, of course, there is a fluctuation that will go. I think all we are waiting is to go just annihilate the barrier of 150. It used to 153, I think, all-time high. I think just reap. So
close to it now, right? And you're right, there's resistance.
Say 155 when there is no longer any resistance, and people will flock into NVIDIA.
And didn't you tell me once that the time to buy is when it sets a new all-time high?
Yeah, that's okay. So with 155, there will be an incredible amount of new money coming into NVIDIA, including institutional money and individual investors and almost everybody. Milan, I think we have difficulties to hear you. I mean, I'd love to understand what you're trying to say, but you have to help us. Hello, Milan? Can you hear us? We cannot hear you.
No. Whatever you did, you muted yourself again. Your mic, you disabled your mic somehow.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
sorry.
So,
yeah.
Have you checked, and is there a reason for you, Jim, to buy Berkshire B shares? Would you consider?
No, I have never been tempted to do so. But it struck me that the same reason he bought it was that what you did with United Health. It got a drop, and he thought it was an unjustified drop. And I'm a total fan of that. I bought IBM once; it was down to about in the 50s, and people were telling me I was a nut to buy it because everybody was selling, and of course I doubled my money because IBM came back to where has historically been. But sometimes a friend of mine used to call this disaster buying. When the bad news comes out and the stock drops, if it's a good, solid company with future revenues, that's an opportunity.
Would you look for the same reason into Intel?
Yes, I did buy a little bit of Intel. The only reason was I want some skin in the game. If otherwise, I wouldn't have tracked it. And so I bought a little bit, not a lot, but a couple lots, and just so that I would check it periodically, because I brushed it off as an old dusty, and these modern companies like Marvell and NVIDIA had put it in the passed it in both lanes, and but I was intrigued because they're doing a pivot to AI, and they're now generating semiconductors that are going to be used for those purposes. And I thought, okay, that has potential, so I'll buy a little bit of it just so that I would keep an eye on it. And it's really kind of treading water, I would say, is the best thing that I could say for it. It spiked up about 3 months ago or something like that.
Yeah. Yes, and then it's about 22 last time I looked at it.
Yeah, it's in that general 20 to 25 kind of range, 23 maybe. But that's what I mean by treading water. It seemed to spike up and then come back down to its level. So I'm not sure what the direction is.
I have a philosophical problem with.
You're muted.
Am I muted?
No, Milan is muted. If you will unmute Milan, we might be able to hear you.
Milan, maybe you have to get a new equipment after all. The old one is not working.
Yeah, we can't hear you. No, we can't. I check under the settings under microphone, and that.
Maybe, hopefully, Milan will make enough money on Berkshire B and.
Yeah.
Now, you see, if you look at AMD as the poor man's NVIDIA, so you look at Intel as a poor man's AMD. So I have philosophical problem to buy Intel.
Yeah, I love it. I have too much AMD right now because they bought a company that we were heavily invested in. But I've been selling it periodically, and I'm, the more it does well, I'm happy. But it was not one of my target companies. NVIDIA, Marvell, they were. But I have to tip my hat to them. They seem to have been successful in spinning the old ways of doing business, and they're doing a better job. And their future looks a little brighter to me now.
Yeah, okay. So the situation in the market is still positive. I'm anxious to see what's ahead of us, what Trump may invent.
Well, Trump thinks he knows more than Chairman Powell about interest rates, and he thinks he knows more than the generals about the military. And he's surrounded himself by amateurs and sycophants, and so he's not getting the professional advice that almost every president, Republican or Democrat, has always surrounded themselves with professionals. And they all knew what they didn't know, and they relied on that professional advice. And now we're in an uncharted territory with no way of predicting what this guy's next brilliant idea is going to
Jim,
be.
but what's interesting is that his strongest suit so far was immigration policy, and he had the biggest approval on that. But
Yes.
now that approval is dwindling. It's coming down with what's happening in LA, and he invented that himself.
Yes.
So what he's trying to kill the only positive ratings that he
Yeah.
had.
There really was no reason for him to be so heavy-handed, and it is backfiring on him. And we won't know until the midterms what the real effect is.
Yeah.
It's definitely backfiring on them and everything like that. But maybe we've all got to invest in WWF or something like that, since he apparently went to a wrestling match with his good friend Dana and everything. And this was while as a president. So he actually showed up in the match, even though I'm sure the Secret Service was all around him and everything like that. So maybe that's what we've got to invest in. And I made the mistake last night of watching one of those matches. And I don't know if y'all have ever watched them, but I really don't get it, because I remember the times of boxing and wrestling when the matches used to go for a long time, and I saw basically a person stumble and then they called the fight, and I'm going like, wait a minute, this seems like the same fight that I was used to and everything, because literally all he did was stumble, and then the fighters were like, oh, it's over, and I'm like, wait a minute, did he get another chance?
Yeah. I have not seen a match in so many decades. I can't remember.
Believe it or not, yesterday I looked at the old matches of Mike Tyson.
Mm-hmm.
There was one, I think the last in
boxing, yes, wrestling, no.
Yeah, boxing, of course. And the last match they showed his fight with a huge Polish fighter.
Right.
It was twice as big as Mike Tyson. And after 4 rounds, he was knocked down a couple of times, but he was getting up. And after 4 rounds, all of a sudden, the guy ran away from the ring. So he was not beaten yet, but he saw what's coming, and he just ran from the ring. And his coaches say, "Come on, come back, come back." No, I'm not coming anywhere. He just ran away from the ring. That was the most unusual fight. But, quite entertaining.
Yeah.
Well, it's I used to enjoy it so much, but now it's just the sadness that overtakes me with the people that they make money and then they lose it, and they get their brains beaten out in the process. So it's not as entertaining as it used to be when I was younger.
Yeah, well, now they're going to have back pay. I don't know if you and Sasha heard this and everything, but I know that Nolan, I'm trying to think of Nolan's last name, but he used to play for Duke. He's regretting that he doesn't get in the back pay. But one of the agreements that just came out is that they're going to back pay the athletes in this new agreement that they just came out with and everything. So I think it's like for going back 10 to 15 years. So they will get some back pay for this new deal that they just put out in the sports world and everything like that. So it'll be interesting to see. But the main thing is, I think they're going to watch an investment, because my fear is that a lot of these people are going to get a windfall. It's kind of like winning the lottery, but they won't know how to invest. So I'm recommending that they watch shows like Modern Investment so they can learn how to invest in the money that they've got. Because if you get like, let's say $10 million or whatever they're going to get and everything like that.
They get new friends all of a sudden that know what to do with the money. Yeah, they're if they're not sophisticated, they can lose it very quickly. Easy come, easy go. But the college sports change. I'm all for people making money and off of their image and likeness and all of that kind of stuff. I don't have any problem with that. But for example, Stanford is now in the Atlantic Coast Conference. How does that make any sense? It makes no sense.
Against teams from North Carolina, Virginia, Florida, and others, when y'all are all the way in California. Yeah, that doesn't make no sense.
And the poor students, they've got finals, they've got to go on long trips, come on. It's not good for the students, but it's all about money that the university can make. And the ACC is a profitable conference. And so, when the Pac-12 dissolved, my interest in college sports waned considerably.
I never followed the college sport like professional NBA, NHL, but
Sure.
And of course European soccer. I just watched another beautiful match in Europe. I was watching final of European team championship, and the final there was Portugal against Spain. They were playing in Germany in Stuttgart, and both times Spain was ahead. They opened score, then was 1-1. Then they scored again, and then Ronaldo scored back, and so it's 2-0. And then in penalties, Portugal scored all 5, and Spain scored only 3, and that was the end of the match.
Shootouts, I don't know, man. It's a terrible way to solve
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Milan, you're unmuted now. Say something, see if I can hear you. No, I'm afraid not.
No, he's gonna have to get his stuff. The mic, or maybe it might have been that he was on Zoom or something else earlier that interfered with his mic or something like that. But we heard him earlier, so I don't know what's going on. But he's having some issues there and everything like that. I did watch one of those soccer matches, Sasha, yesterday, and I think it might have been Portugal or one of the other matches, but it ended in a 1-1 tie. It was one that was on last night and everything, but it ended in a 1-1 tie.
Yesterday I was still traveling. But who was playing yesterday?
I remember. I'm going to look it up and see if I can remember, but I know that I was watching. I want to say it might have been Portugal and everything, but I'll double check as I look. But I know that I was sitting there going like a 1-1 tie, because they said it was that's happened sometimes in soccer and everything, but it was one of those matches. So
don't they go to shootout though?
Portugal won over Spain. It was a final, and it was 2-2 after 90 minutes. So then on a penalty shootout, Portugal won 5-3.
Yeah, this game, it ended literally in the 1-1 tie. Like I said, I was flipping through news, and it was like one of those. It might have been one of those youth divisions, but they literally after.
It must have been something like that, because I don't see any 1-1 ties. Oh, Argentina, Colombia.
Oh,
that could have been it. That could have been it.
That's 1-1.
I haven't seen it.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, Colombia is a very, very strong team, so they can compete with Argentina. Well, Argentina overall still stronger team.
Yeah.
But the issue is whether Messi is playing or not, and there are several.
Well, he's playing in the United States now.
Very
making
soon.
A big.
He will be back.
In San Jose.
He will be back in Barcelona.
He will be back.
They're crazy about him.
Sorry, Milan, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
I would check settings and microphone.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, we've covered a lot of ground today. Let's see what's next week.
Audio.
What kind of presence we will get from the market, hopefully, in spite of Trump and his policies. And thank you so much for today's program, and we'll see you next week.
Good to see you again, Sasha. I'm glad you had a wonderful vacation.
Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
See you.
See you.